Hey everyone, my name is Daniel and I'm a game lead at German hyper-casual games developer and publisher Sunday. Today I want to take you with me on my personal journey and tell you a bit about how and why I got here in the first place, like from being a solo developer for almost 7 years, and also cover some of the main differences between my work life then and now. So let's get started. Fun fact is that I actually studied to become a teacher and I also worked in that field for almost 5 years. But I always had that feeling that I wanted to do something different, just a job that is not like a usual one. Yeah, I was in a quite fortunate position that my brother had a company that was already working in the hyper casual business. So I quit my job as a teacher and I joined his company. Back then, he already had released two successful games with a major publisher. And so I was like really fortunate. I could start learn Unity from scratch. I could really take the time to get into coding, which I actually never touched before. And eventually, we were even able to release two more games together. So after some time, I think it was about 2 years, we then decided that I will found my own company. I was also confident that I could tackle like making games on a good level now on my own. Yeah, like I said, I founded my own company, and then I worked with like most of the major publishers out there over the next few years. I also managed to release two more games to the stores, which were quite successful. Um, but now I basically can already see the question popping up in your head. Okay, but why are we here now? Why did you basically abandon being a so successful solo developer when everything basically ran so good, right? And this is a valid question, and I want to answer it. I hope I can answer it in the next few minutes. So my situation can basically be described as the following. I can split it in two main areas. Like first is that we have just really big players out there who are able to test like hundreds of games simultaneously. And I mean, when you or I as a solo developer have like a really good month, I maybe pushed out like 4 to 5 prototypes, sometimes six, but this was hardly the case, right? The usual was around four. Um, but at the same time, this basically means that the huge publishers like or let me start differently. Like our hyper casual games business is like data driven to the max, and those huge publishers, by releasing so many prototypes, testing so many different concepts, they have access to like this insanely incredible huge amount of data that you as a solo developer just don't have. And even, I mean, many publishers do it already, but even if they share this valuable information with you, then there's still another problem because, as you know, hyper casual business is not a niche market anymore, right? We have huge companies. We are over the press like all over the time, all of the time, and also we have like huge investors funding studios, funding publishers, and so that means that you are basically competing against well-funded, high-skilled teams from all over the world, right? All on your own. And I mean, if you can assume that they also have access to the same data, they will not only outrun but also outperform you. Second, looking at this image from a SpongeBob episode here, maybe you know this episode is basically SpongeBob and King Neptune having a contest who's like creates the best burger. And in this episode, SpongeBob, even if he only creates like one single burger, he still makes it the winner because like the quality of this single burger is so good that actually King Neptune cannot make up for it with all the quantity he delivers, right? Um, Problem when you transfer this to the hyper casual market now is that not only the quantity is rising, but also quality is like really, really high, right? So what I found when I looked at the stores was no matter which genre I basically tried to focus on, there were already like really, really good, really high quality and good performing games, and not only one of them, but several of them, right? Um, and my personal dilemma or my problem was basically that in order to be able to compete with that, I would have needed to spend less time working on prototypes and actually went back to school bench and improved my skills as a Unity developer, or I could also hire someone who already owned that skill set, right? Um, The problem with that simply was that I could afford neither of the two options, because as a father of two little kids and being the only source of income, I needed to provide a steady cash flow for my family. Um, Additionally, at this time, I almost felt burned out a bit from doing so many prototypes in rapid succession on my own, and I just wished for somebody who was like-minded, who I could share my experiences with, talk about ideas, juggle some crazy thoughts around, and just work together on projects as a team. And this is basically the point in time when I decided to leave my solo developing career behind and just join a bigger team, yeah, for good. I personally limited myself to looking for employment options inside Germany, because I actually wanted to go to an office for the first time in my life and stop working remotely. I know this might sound a bit crazy to you, but I mean, looking back, when I worked as a teacher, I also was like working alone all the time because yeah, you have your colleagues, but you're still alone in your classroom, and basically everybody's doing his lessons in his or her own style. And then as a solo developer, I also was sitting like in front of my PC all the time alone and developing games on my own, right? So I really craved for this feeling to get up, drink a coffee, go to the office, just quote unquote normal work life. Um, the next thing I really looked for was that my future employer could provide me some, stability and also a possibility to improve myself on a professional level. Um, I mean, being in the hyper casual business for so long, I have heard of Sunday, and I also heard that the climate inside the company, like the mood, is really good. And I also have read about its unique strength as part of the strong Applied group. And so I made the decision to apply for a position at Sunday. Um, from there, to be honest, things developed really quickly. And shortly after I had my first talk to our managing director, Christoph Sachsenhausen, I signed the contract for the position as game lead at Sunday. And so since then, already 4 months have passed, and I got a very good insight on what the key differences between solo developing games and working on projects as a bigger team are. So let me talk you through a typical workflow from my solo developing times now. Um, Usually, when I was not given a ready concept by my publisher, I would do some first research, right? Usually by looking for trends on socials, like TikTok, YouTube trends and stuff like this. On the games chart, go to some devlogs, or Steam games and stuff like this. Um, when I then think I found something that could like really be a nice idea, I jumped straight into ideation phase. And you can guess it, that mostly resulted in what we call a fast follow approach, where you jump on a trend, and try to make a profit of it like really quickly. And I mean, as a trend tends to be over like really quickly, I needed to jump straight into execution. Uh, I didn't take the time to validate my the products of my ideation because I just was in this rush all the time, and so I was just trying to lose as little time as possible, and that basically got me stuck in that loop I described before. Um, that, as you can imagine, this led to a huge amount of randomness in my concepts, because I also didn't take the time to evaluate what I did right. So I didn't take the time to really sit down and try to narrow or to think about, hey, what could be improved in this concept? Why did it fail? Just stuff like this to make you improve in the long run, right? And I'm not saying that you can't do hits like this, right? There's still a chance of doing it, but the chances are so incredibly small, and there are just way better approaches, as we are about to discover now. Um, because like one thing I always was missing as a solo developer was being connected to a big team. Maybe some of you or most of you have seen the latest episodes of Stranger Things, and so you know how powerful what is called a hive mind can be if used correctly. Don't worry, I won't spoil anything, but for those who know, I think you can relate. Um, so how exactly are we at Sunday making use of that, and also how does this help myself to improve, right? So as we strive for new approaches to improve our product quality always, um, and we always want to get better at what we are doing. So we are currently basically prototyping a new direction when it comes to ideation, right? And I want to break it down and don't worry, I will simplify it for you and talk about it here real quick. So what I usually do is I first pick a genre and then I research some key elements for the genre that are basically mandatory and that need to be in our new product as well. Um, so for example, for an incremental game, you usually have those upgrade buttons, right? Every incremental game has them, and you also need them in your new product. Um, then usually you have like a clear level end or like a clear fail because we are limited by our current status, like means like the strength or durability or stamina of our character. And then you have like a clear improvement. For example, you can see it by jumping higher, running further, digging deeper, whatever. Um, when I found those out, then I usually will brief my team about those, and together we start ideating. Um, what's really cool is that the other internal teams are also working on concepts from the same genre, like following the same patterns. And so we can exchange learnings and experiences very easily. And because everybody is on the same page, you also can get feedback and suggestions for improvements fast and implement them basically on the fly. So you can create your IPM tests and then go from there. What that basically did for me is it takes out much of the randomness I was personally struggling with as a solo developer. And this also overall leads to much better products, what in the end hopefully leads to more success stories, right? Additionally, the exchange about ideas does not only help me to improve my understanding of what good concepts can look like, we also are experiencing a huge uplift in company-wide motivation, as everyone from the team can bring in their very own experiences and preferences into the ideation process instead of just working on given protos one after another, right? And I mean, this is really like an important part of my new daily work routine because I mean, in the past, I only had to motivate and manage myself, right? Now I'm responsible for like several artists and developers, and I am also dependent on their productivity. And it makes my job just so much easier if every team member actually can contribute a lot to the projects we are working on, what at the same time brings up their willingness to work on ideas. As all of our internal teams, but additionally most of our external teams work based on the same patterns, this enables us to share information and experiences and fails very fast, and we can modify each other's concepts on the fly. I mean, everybody is following the same patterns, the same path, so this is like really, really easy. And so this is basically why I mentioned the usage of this Hivemind earlier, because this is actually what we are doing, right? Um, as we are already talking about ways a person can grow inside a big company like Sunday, let's maybe shed some more light on this topic and look over some of the possibilities I personally am giving to improve myself. Um, so first of all, by managing a team, I need to make sure that everybody's on the same page all the time, meaning we all need to arrive at the same point at the same time. Um, I mean, that needs a lot of communication and also lots of planning ahead, right? Even if we are making those simple, quote unquote, hyper casual prototypes, there's still like a lot of planning involved. In order to do that, you need to be able to understand your team members' workflows, but you also need to make sure that nobody is slowing down the work, right? Um, everybody knows it. You can basically stick to details. You can get caught up working on stuff, but still we need to stick to a schedule, and this is one of my main tasks to make sure that we all arrive at the same point at the same time. Um, I mean, this alone is already a major difference to working alone, as I only had to manage myself, right? I knew in my head how the project should look like. I knew which assets I would need, and I knew how the code would roughly look like. So I just started, right? I mean, as a teacher, I managed a class of 30 children before, so this definitely helps me. But Sunday additionally gives us the opportunity to participate in leadership trainings where each of the leads is getting trained based on his or her individual personality. The next important field I just called mastering tools. As you might know, the App-like group not only contains Sunday, but we also have our own in-house analyzing and tracking tool, Just Track, and also Edjo, the in-house monetization and advertising platform. So coming from a solo developing background, I mean, I never had really anything to do with thinking about the complex relations between like IPM, CTR, CPI, different bidding strategies, or LTV. I mean, don't get me wrong. I knew that it was good if we have a low CPI and high like retention rates so that we can potentially show more ads, right? But if we're honest, the publishers handle the rest. You as a developer usually don't have to wrap your hand around stuff like this. But now, as I'm working with the tools the company provides me, like on a daily basis, um, I'm really getting the chance to wrap my head in this, right? Really dig deep into all this into this like issues and really try start to understand stuff like it. I mean, we always strive to improve our products to the best experience for our players. So, for example, I'm learning so much about that part of the business too, and I finally understand how all the pieces are connected, right, and how you can optimize them. So, for example, I'm not only talking about ways to analyze and improve churn rates per level, but also about fine nuances that are between when and how to share ads at which point and how they also will basically affect your LTV, right? Like just minor choices, minor changes can do like or can have like a really huge impact. Um, One really big change for me was that I actually had regular meetings in the first time of my life. I mean, meetings are really an important part of our business. And I came to realize quite quickly that you can be like one of two types of participants in a meeting. You can just sit there and listen, or you can actively contribute. Um, but as part of my individual learning and growing process, I understood that actively contributing is a skill you first have to acquire, and I call this professional communication. I mean, especially as a lead, you need to be able to give precise feedback. You need to pinpoint not only problems, but also come up with creative solutions for them and be able to communicate them. And as the other companies also rely on feedback from our daily experience working with them, with their tools, it's crucial to be able to be really good at professional communication. Um, Last but not least, I want to talk briefly about what I titled resource management. Um, I mean, all of us at Sunday, we enjoy a lot of flexibility and a lot of freedom. I never look back to the times when I was still developing games on my own. But as I also not really feel like working there as some kind of burden, right? It just is like I always describe it. Yeah, working, doing a cool project with my friends, some kind of. And so you can easily get lost and forget about the time you're actually spending with work related topics. As a solo developer, I never learned to call it a day. I was always afraid to not work enough and not to be able to write for my family anymore, right? um, Being part of a company now and seeing the bigger picture, this makes it so much more easy for me to really literally shut down my Mac and all work related thoughts together with it, just to have more quality time for my family and me. And this brings me to my last point for today, which also falls under the main category of resource management, but this is mental health. When you are constantly failing as a solo developer, and we all know this is just part of the game, you can start to doubt yourself and forget to draw learnings from your failures to improve eventually, right? This is exactly what I did. I didn't even have the time to analyze my failures because I was just prototyping all the time. So working at Sunday, I don't am afraid of failing anymore. And also what's important, I don't am afraid of taking the time to fail and analyze my failures anymore. I mean, because we as a team, we make sure that we draw our conclusions from every single failure. We talk about what went wrong and can be improved, and eventually we improve too, right? So to sum it all up, even if I'm only at the company for a really short time compared to my time as a solo developer, I hardly can find anything that would me regret my choice, and I'm really happy where I'm at right now. So this basically was it from me. I hope you enjoyed my talk a bit. Thanks for your time and attention, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the content today. Bye.